When I reflect on things that I've always wanted to achieve but haven't, I can spot a pattern. It's usually that I was avoiding some sort of discomfort, whether it's with things that I never bothered to start or things that I did start and then soon gave up on. It's usually the same story. You know, the reason for not achieving big, important things is usually not down to a lack of resources or a lack of time. More often, it's down to just not putting in the work that's needed or simply not getting started in the first place. It's always much easier to choose the path of least resistance and just stay in my comfort zone. Now, I'm going to be bold here and go out on a bit of a limb and guess that the same is true for you too. I mean, at the end of the day, we're both humans and this is the kind of thing we do. And let's be clear here, when I say comfort or discomfort, that doesn't necessarily mean it's like trying to deadlift 2 times your body weight in the gym and the physical strain of doing something like that. No, the discomfort isn't always because the thing is difficult or painful in the typical sense. For example, me learning Spanish or trying to, that isn't something that's physically painful. It might be painful to listen to me, but it's not something that's difficult to do, yet I'm still not fluent, despite first starting to learn it over 15 years ago and having spent 2 years living in Spain. Yeah, I know, I need to hang my head in shame about that. And learning to trade isn't painful either. Yes, it might be emotionally painful at times, but that's more to do with losses in trading itself rather than the process of learning. You don't have to push your body to its physical limit to learn about trend structures or to correct your risk management. So it might be that the process of learning something is actually easy, but it takes time and repetitions. Repetitions that are boring or tedious, where there are alternatives that are more exciting. So this presents some sort of discomfort and this leads to that goal not being achieved. People get shiny object syndrome and move on to the next thing because there's less friction starting a new project or learning a new skill. The pain comes from needing to be consistent with your efforts. That takes mental strength. But think about this for a moment. Imagine what your life could be like if instead of avoiding discomfort, you embraced a mindset where you actually enjoyed pain and work, a mindset where you didn't always want to feel cozy and comfortable, a mindset where you thrived in situations that left you feeling worn out at the end of the day. In fact, imagine you didn't avoid those situations, you actually looked for them so that you could challenge yourself. What could you achieve each day if that was how you operated? What would your life be like now if you'd already been doing that for years already? What things have you been avoiding for whatever reason that you would already have conquered and be enjoying the benefits of? You know, I see this playing out all the time with people learning to trade, even our members in our community. One of the most important ingredients for developing a new skill like trading is consistency. And consistency can be a bit of a grind a lot of the time. It can be boring, it can be tedious, it can be mentally draining. So this leads to most people learning in waves of effort and consistency. They start off with a huge amount of motivation, they get excited about the idea of being a profitable trader, and then as they spend more and more time out of their comfort zone working on the skill, the motivation starts to decline. They might be okay with it for a while, but as soon as they encounter some sort of obstacle or some other distraction comes up, they'll use it as an easy excuse to take their foot off the gas and sometimes even completely give up. But the thing is, an obstacle that you encounter when you're learning something is just a sign that there's something you need to grow to get past. There's something here that you're struggling with in your current state, so you need to figure out what you need to do or stop doing to get past that. Most obstacles in trading can be overcome with a combination of 2 things, the right approach and the right amount of effort. So if you're putting in the right amount of effort and it's not working, you need to change your approach. If you have the right approach but you're not getting past that obstacle, you need to put in more effort. But neither of those options are comfortable. So people avoid that discomfort, use it as an excuse, and the consistency stops. Then weeks, months, maybe even years later, they'll remember how much they wanted to be trading. They'll forget about the effort, the boredom, the pain. They'll focus on the pleasure of achieving the end goal until they hit that wall again. It's like this constant cycle of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Now, after a while, they might actually reflect on how long they've been learning for and wonder why they haven't made much progress. They'll see others who have been doing it for a much shorter amount of time and are now succeeding. They're lapping them, while they still seem like a beginner despite having spent all that time. It's frustrating, it's disappointing, and it's a huge waste of time because in the end, avoiding this discomfort in the short term leads to things taking much longer. It leads to longer term discomfort because suddenly you're going to feel like you've underachieved. Some people will even give up trading forever because now they look at their peers and they think that they're too far behind, that they've got so much to catch up on, it'll just be another excuse to avoid the work. They'll be soft and they'll blame everything else around them other than the fact that they didn't do the work. They didn't work on the things they needed to work on. They just wanted the easy route. They wanted things handed on a plate for them. They didn't want to do the difficult things. But you see, life is sort of like one big workout. If you go to the gym and you want to grow, you have to put your body under stress. When you stop doing this for some time, then you start to decline. Likewise, if you want to grow in other ways in life, the same principle applies. So rather than trying to escape from discomfort when building skills or trying to grow as a person, we need to be embracing it. We should be finding situations that stretch us and challenge us mentally and physically. Situations where we're forced to dig deep and grow to overcome these new challenges. When we face those situations, to overcome them, we sometimes have to flip a switch in our mind. It's that moment where our mind takes over and says, yes, this is uncomfortable, but I'm going to find a way to get through it. Like when people are running a marathon and they hit the wall, but manage to complete the race anyway. Most people don't even know that they have this mental switch in the first place, because every time they come up against some resistance, every time there's an obstacle, they just give up. Whereas the people who push further and have to flip that switch, they will always know that that switch is there. And they'll not only figure out ways to switch on at their will, but they'll look for different situations that will force them to. It starts to get addictive. If we always stop when we start hitting the uncomfortable part in something, we'll never grow and we'll never achieve these big goals. We need to understand that our goals will usually require discomfort, and life is not always about going down the path of least resistance and trying to find what's most comfortable. We need to be aware of the pain and the struggle that we're in. Even if that struggle is just the boredom and tedium of being consistent every single day. But then we need to find ways to push through anyway and take pleasure in the discomfort. We need to learn to enjoy it. And then look for those situations rather than avoiding them, because the outcome on the other side of that is growth and fulfillment that will improve our lives. I think one problem for a lot of people these days is that they haven't seen what goes into high-level performance. They've seen the end performance on social media, TV, books, newspapers, whatever else, but not the work. They might appreciate that there's work in the process of achieving something in the first place, of reaching that level, but they don't realize how much work goes into maintaining it and the new challenges and obstacles that people at that level have to overcome. So I think this leaves a lot of people who are learning to trade thinking that they just have to push themselves now. But then once they're profitable, they'll be fully in their comfort zone and there won't be any more problems. So the uncomfortable bit is now, then it's going to be comfortable later. But reality check for you, you're always going to have to push yourself out of your comfort zone in one way or another if you want to continue to succeed. Even at the very height of success, it's just like what legendary boxer Marvin Hagler said about training. It's tough to get out of bed and to do road work at 5 AM when you've been sleeping in silk pajamas. So if you can't push yourself now to deal with the minor discomfort of putting in effort and consistency to learn something, how are you going to be prepared for the bigger discomfort of the challenges and stresses that you'll face when there's real money on the line and the pressure is really on? So think of this part as not only training to learn the skill of trading, but also mentally preparing yourself for the new pressures and new problems that you're going to encounter. Because one day you'll look back and you'll see the current obstacles that you're facing as easy. Once you've overcome them and grown as a person to be better equipped to deal with them, you'll look back and think about how easy they were because you'll be facing new and more difficult challenges. So here's the thing. Rather than avoiding discomfort or thinking that it will be over soon, realize that this is how you grow. Embrace it, Look for it, don't try to escape it, because the more you avoid it, the more you're delaying achieving your goals, and you'll end up living a mediocre life by your own standards. So, time to flip that mental switch. Hit the like button if you're ready, and let's get on with it.